everybody, and welcome to the West Village Kitchen. We're going to be concentrating this month on some great wintry recipes. The weather's getting a bit cooler and it's a great time to put together some healthy, hearty recipes. They're going to warm you up, but you don't have to spend ages doing as well. So the recipe I'm going to do for you now is using this smoked ham hock, and this is a beautiful ingredient to have a play around with. It's what you'd use if you were going to make pea and ham soup. If we just simmer it for a couple of hours in a pot of boiling water, then it's all just going to sort of fall off the bone. So it's kind of like braising it really, really slowly. And then what we'll end up with is the hock, which we pull out and shred up, and I'm going to put it into a tomato and Borlotti bean soup. So what I'll do is just grab your ham hock and nice big pot of water, something that's big enough to completely cover it, bring it up to the boil, and then turn it down as low as it'll go, and just leave it for, it takes a good couple of hours of just ticking away nice and slowly. And you'll notice that after a while, you can kind of give it a little bit of a shake and it'll all just fall off the bone. That's when we take it out, let it cool down, and then enough that we can handle it and shred it all apart. And in the meantime, we've got on to making this soup. We can use that stock to sort of fill out the soup to be the actual stock part of the soup. I'm going to blanch these tomatoes and skin them. There's going to be some lovely vegetables in it. It's kind of a little bit of a play, I guess, on a minestrone, but it's not as heavy. It doesn't have the pasta in it and that sort of thing. So very similar style. So we'll wait a little while before we get stuck into making the soup part. We'll wait for that ham hock to be ready, and then we'll come back to it. So that ham hock's been simmering away for a couple of hours now, and just when you feel that it's actually just sort of falling off the bone, that's when you need to pull it out of the liquid. And I've just got that on there and I'm just boiling it away, just bringing it down, reducing all that beautiful ham hock flavour. It's lovely and smoky, and we're going to add that back to the soup. So while that cools down, I'm going to shred it all up. I'll let that cool down, and in the meantime, I'm going to blanch these fresh tomatoes to go into the soup, because it does make quite a difference to the actual texture of this dish by having real fresh tomatoes in it. And what I'm doing here is I'm just getting them ready for blanching. So blanching is really just taking the skin off. So taking the core out and putting a little crisscross in them. And what that does is when we drop them into the boiling water, it's going to actually help the skin peel off a little bit. We'll be able to see when they're ready to take out, put them straight into cold water, and then we can peel the skin off. And that's the point where we can start to peel from. So just gently dropping the tomatoes into a nice big pot of boiling water. And I've got a bowl of cold water ready for them to go straight into. Okay. So when you see the little crisscross that we've made start to lift, that's when you know that they're ready to come out. So straight out into the cold water to cool down so we can peel them. So now the skins of the tomatoes should just slip off nice and easily. And if the tomatoes are nice and ripe as well, that makes a big difference. So it makes it a lot easier to get the skins off. And you can use any type of tomatoes you like for this. Roma tomatoes are really good for cooking. They're very pulpy, really good for soups. But if you see a good bag of really nice ripe tomatoes at the shops and they're going cheap, that's the perfect time to go, okay, I'm going to make that soup that Matt taught me. Now I'm just going to rough dice these. This size tomato, I'd cut it into, say, 3 across, and 3 that way. So it stays fairly chunky. Obviously these tomatoes are going to break down in the soup fairly nicely, but I like to have that. We've got Borlotti beans in there. We're going to have chunks of carrot and celery and onions and everything else, and the ham hock. So we want to have the same sort of size pieces as all of those things. So now that the tomatoes are diced, the ham hock's cooling down, that liquid is reducing. I've just drained some Borlotti beans here. That's going to give us kind of a starchiness to the soup, I suppose, and also a nice nutritional value. So protein from the Borlotti beans, protein from the ham hock, and all those things, they're not high in fat. They're quite good for you. So it's a hearty, wintry soup, but not necessarily a fatty one. So And then I'm going to sort of flavour it up with all the classic 3 vegetables that you put into any good soup: onion, celery and carrot. And then I'm going to put some garlic and some bay leaves in there as well. So and you don't have to be precious about this either. These can just be roughly diced up, and then I'll shred that ham hock down, and there'll be just big chunks of that in there. So it's a really good, healthy, hearty soup. And once again, really, it's a dish that you can make a big pot of and then put some away, so you've got some for, when you come home and you're tired and you don't feel like cooking, you can just defrost some and they're ready to go. Now I've got some fresh bay leaves here as well to go in. A bay tree is a really good thing to have on hand. You can use dried bay leaves, but I love using fresh bay leaves in dishes where there's a chance that it's cooking for a long time and they could break down, the dried ones. So fresh ones are probably half the strength, so I use twice as many. But it's nice to have, it's a beautiful tree as well to have. If you've got a balcony that you can have a pot and have a bay tree on there, whenever you need leaves for your bolognese or your soups, you can just go out and pick them fresh. And it's a really nice tree, nice plant to look at as well. Some sliced garlic. So we're going to start just by frying all this in some olive oil. Add the tomato paste, cook it out, the tomatoes, some stock. And once the tomatoes in there and the stock are in there, I'm just adding those Borlotti beans just tinned Borlotti beans that I drained, and then just give them a good rinse under the tap. While that's simmering, I'm going to start shredding that smoked ham hock to add to that. There's surprisingly a huge amount of actual ham on the ham hock. So you end up with quite a lot in there. And once the tomatoes are broken down a little bit, I'm just going to add the ham hock chunks in there and let it simmer on low now for probably a good, an hour would be good, I reckon. I've got some fresh rosemary, and I'll just tear it straight off the stalk, throw it in whole. So there it is, a beautiful hearty smoked ham hock, tomato and Borlotti bean soup. It's healthy, it's hearty, it's delicious, big chunks of that shredded ham hock in there. The only thing you really need to do now, if you want to be really decadent, serve it with a big bowl of pesto that you can drizzle on top and some lovely grilled sourdough. Thanks so much for joining me in the West Village Kitchen. I hope you have a great winter and some of these recipes feature in your kitchen.